Hysteria grips the Southland. That's if you believe the media barrage. It's amazing. The TV stations, the local news sites. Although I got to admit, LA Daily News deserves a little gold star. We'll tell you why in a moment.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Times.
No, the Times is out.
Which is the king of fake news, has a dramatically different story about the immigration raids compared to the LA Daily News, which has, I don't know how to describe this, facts in the story?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah?
Details. All right, well, here's the deal. You probably heard about this yesterday. Protests began around Southern California. I believe in downtown L.A., they briefly blocked the 101 freeway. ICE out of California. ICE out of California. Racists out, immigrants in. That's some of the signs I saw the people.
Were you out there? You said that sounds pretty good. Sounds like you were out there.
At one point, I think there was only 100 people, but they get a lot of media coverage because, we love protests.
Right, even though they're paid for by some organized group.
Apparently, and I like the way this is put, phones began ringing. I guess this is at the illegal alien activist headquarters.
Yes.
From people all over Southern California claiming that ICE was on a rampage, rounding up their family members. This is how this story started. Now, we have the update, because as John pointed out, the LA Daily News and the LA Times just this afternoon have put out the numbers. But the LA Daily News has details on who a lot of the people that were rounded up are. So the story from last night and this morning, arrests made by federal immigration officials in Southern California this week have heightened anxiety about a promised crackdown by President Trump on people in this country illegally. The situation highlighted fear among many immigrants about Trump's vow to deport those here illegally. And it mentions what we talked about yesterday, the new Pew Research study, which says there were 1 million, and they just put, immigrants living here without proper papers. So they wanted to say something different to the LA Times, but immigrants living here without proper papers.
The Washington Post this morning had this story. The panicked emails and phone calls began streaming in from community members at 11 a.m. Thursday morning, inundating Los Angeles immigration lawyers with far more cases than usual. We know the daily patterns of people being picked up and taken. There's a natural flow that happens every day. This was not normal, said Angelica Salas, executive director of CHRLA.
The Immigrations and Customs Enforcement people, and Virginia Keiss is still their spokeswoman. She's been there, I don't know, for ages. The arrests were not part of a new and more aggressive mission. They're just part of routine enforcement actions. And on top of this, and you knew this would happen, the Pomona Police Department had to send out an alert last night, warning of social media hoaxes, claiming that the Pomona Police Department was taking part in immigration checkpoints. Similar rumors circulated last week as well. They are definitely fake news.
Okay.
There are no immigration checkpoints.
The Los Angeles Times.
But the Trump hysteria, man, anything's possible with these people.
LA Times, a bunch of hysterical bedwetters. Washington Post, hysterical bedwetters. LA Daily News prints this.
All right, now the update this afternoon is that we now have a number of the people rounded up by immigration authorities, and the number appears to be 160. Again, there's 1 million people living without papers in L.A. and Orange County.
So this was 1/100th of 1% of the illegals that are here. So the 160 had criminal histories. The operation targeted criminal aliens who re-entered the country illegally or who were fugitives.
It turns out it was a 6-county area that included 55 communities.
So let's count up the offenses here. They come into the country illegally, then they commit crimes.
Some of these are serious crimes.
They go to prison and are deported, then they come back into the country again. That's who is getting rounded up today.
And yesterday and earlier this week. And by the way, there was talk by some of the activists and the politicians that it was families being broken up, women and children. 95% of those rounded up were men.
Yeah. There was no, listen to this. Among those arrested, according to ICE, and this is from the LA Daily News, because the Times, they all had to change their diapers.
Well, we'll give you their update in a moment. Not anything like this one.
A Salvadoran national who was allegedly part of the MS-13 gang. He was arrested in Huntington Park and was wanted in his native country for aggravated extortion.
There's a Brazilian national arrested in L.A. and wanted in Brazil for alleged cocaine trafficking.
An Australian national from West Hollywood Australian. Look at this. This very diverse group of people being deported. Australian national from West Hollywood. He was wanted on suspicion of lewd acts with a child.
Oh.
You see? These are really bad people that they got. Criminal records, multiple deportations.
150 out of the 160 had criminal histories. Their records included felony convictions for serious offenses, child sex crimes, weapons charges, and assaults. All right? Did you hear that? Now, on the other hand, the LA Times, in their update this afternoon, not that kind of detail.
None of that
who
detail
was
at all.
rounded up.
Instead, they have a sob story about a young woman whose father was nearly deported to Mexico.
Nearly.
She shook with rage as she spoke about the fears the Trump administration had stoked among immigrant communities. The woman, who identified herself only as Marlene, claimed immigration officials were searching for someone else when they arrested her father, who does not have a criminal record. With Donald Trump being president, I see no hope for us, she said before sobbing and walking away. Gee, how come the bedwetters at the LA Times don't talk about the little kids who were sexually attacked by the Australian in West Hollywood? We didn't get that, did we?
No, the activists are seizing on this to try to trumpet up the fact that they don't want anybody deported.
What?
So they're trying to make people believe in the fake news that this is just your average illegal immigrant who's committed no crimes. They're going to work every day. They've got families and children, and suddenly there's a knock at the door and they're taken away. These are criminals.
The Los Angeles Times has literally endless space on its website. They could put up thousands and thousands of pages on anything, any day. How about we get the complete criminal history of all 160 deportees? Let's have the whole criminal history so we can see the real people that the Trump administration deported today, instead of your sob stories about people who were almost deported, but not really. You had a girl, and by the way, the LA Times didn't look to see if this was true. In fact, they didn't even get the girl's name. So they didn't know if she's telling the truth or not. Well, this is what she said. Well, how do we know she's telling the truth? We don't.
One of these groups
what if the guy had the same name as a convicted felon? Happens all the time. That's part of the deal.
Angelica Salas is executive director of CHIRLA, Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, one of these activist groups. And, she says things to the Washington Post like, well, we heard of examples of people detained who are not violent offenders.
Fake news.
We heard.
And then listen to Kevin DeLeon, who admitted his family committed multiple acts of identity fraud.
Right.
Against American citizens. Felony identity fraud.
Fake green cards, fake driver's licenses.
Well, he had the big diaper on.
Oh, really?
Remember, Los Angeles Daily News said it's 150 out of 160 had criminal histories. But this is DeLeon. It is now clear the Trump administration is not concerned with public safety. They're only focused on ripping hardworking men, women, and children from their families and communities. That is a total lie. 95% were men. And 150 out of 160 had criminal histories. But DeLeon lies, and the Washington Post prints that it was women and children being rounded up. DeLeon lies, and then they print the lie. And they were wrong. Mass deportations will not make us safer, he said. Instead, they will simply undermine our state's economy. What the hell? I mean, they just make things up. It gets printed as truth. All kinds of hysteria. You wait a day, go to something like the LA Daily News, which apparently has old-fashioned journalistic standards, and it's like, oh, geez, we got a MS-13 gang member here. We got a cocaine trafficker. We got a guy who's raping little kids.
Yeah. That's the kind of people we want to keep in the U.S.
So,
and by the way, like yesterday's hysteria was over the one woman in Phoenix who got deported because she got nabbed in a workplace raid 9 years ago, and she had illegal ID.
Yeah.
And was convicted for that.
Those are felonies. You steal someone's ID, that's a felony. You can't do that. Not in a civilized society. DeLeon's family, those were all felonies that he admitted they committed.
Now, if it was up to us, Trump could go a lot further, but...
hey, it's a good day. It's a good start.
If it's just a routine roundup, it's something. All right, we got more to come.
John and Ken Show, KFI. Heather Jordan is news.